Hello fellow cinephiles, Film Guru here. So I'm continuing on my horror icon series focusing on Jason Voorhees. So today I'll be reviewing Friday the 13th Part 3. This came out in 1982 and was directed by Steve Miner, who'd done the previous film. This is the first film to carry on from the previous movie. So this film starts once again with the events of the end of the last film. So another recap, which I don't know if I'm enjoying them doing the recaps, but it's definitely part of it. And then this is a straight sequel from that. So from the events of what happened at that cabin, where all the counselors were, that day, it's showing him that he escaped, that he survived his wounds. He's moved out of the forest area into sort of town in a way. And he sort of sets his sights on this married couple who own this like convenience store type thing. And he ultimately kills this married couple and then sort of heads off. And ultimately then we're introduced to a group of young people who are going up to a cabin that one of them owns. It's sort of a farm area, a place that this particular character hasn't been for a long time. And ultimately while they're there, Jason shows up and starts picking them off one by one until the hero is left and she has to overcome things in order to beat him. And it really looks at what she has to do that. What I think this film did really well is it felt like it got back to what they were doing in the first movie. With a small amount of people, with a simple single location of these people going there, and then Jason showing up and evolving that character a bit. From the Hessian bag pillowcase that he has with a single eye cut out, to this is a film where he picks up his hockey mask and he's cemented in everybody's mind of what Jason looks like and the mask that he does wear. I think each of the characters is defined enough. You've got sort of a stoner couple, which I really liked. I thought they were very funny and added a lot of good moments. You've got a character called Shelley, who's sort of a prankster and an actor in a way, and he wears a lot of masks and does silly things and pisses everybody off, and he seems like an asshole. But I think he's one of the better things about the film because he adds a lot of humorous moments. And there's a moment towards the end where it's sort of like a cry wolf idea where he ultimately has his throat slit and they think he's just joking around. I really like that because he sets it up earlier in the film. He's a character I enjoyed. There was a lot of them that I enjoyed and was sad to see them go because I thought they were solid. It felt like having the less characters could define them a lot more, and that's what made it a bit better than the previous film. To me, this is like the archetypal slasher film. This is the type of film that a lot of people copied in other horror films, where you've got the strong female lead who has to overcome something to kill the villain or the masked killer. You had the stoner characters and defined characters like that. You had a lot of sex and violence in it. And you just had sort of cheesiness to it that would later be used in the slasher genre. And I feel this is one of my favorites so far. I like it nearly more than the first one, but not quite as much. I feel it just wasn't taking itself too serious and it was having fun with itself. And it was having these interesting and fun characters we could care for and get behind and didn't want anything bad to happen to them. And then they sort of changed the idea of how they revealed Jason in this. More of a silhouettes and camera behind him as he's watching through a window. So they tossed out those sort of POV shots that were sort of started with him and Mrs. Voorhees in the first two films, and sort of going with a bit more traditional stuff they would ultimately use later. I think this is a very important film in the slasher genre because it was doing things that would inspire later filmmakers in the slasher films they would make. I like the single location. There's a moment where the lead actress character sort of tells this story of how she was attacked. And they do this sort of, with the sort of flashbacks so they use in Wayne's World, type thing, and it sort of fades into she was attacked by Jason, but she didn't know who it was, and that's why she hasn't returned there. But she sort of passed out and woke up in a bed and she didn't really know what happened, and it's sort of a reason why she hasn't returned there. And she's telling this to a guy that she sort of had a relationship with, but she hasn't seen him in a long time. And I just found this moment kind of humorous. It just made me laugh. There's a film called The Final Girls which sort of made fun of the slasher genre and was really taking the piss out of the Friday the 13th series, and this is definitely a film I got a lot from because it just exudes that sort of silliness. The stoner characters are very funny in it. There are some great moments. There's a lot of great death scenes that I like and were different. But it was a bit schlocky in that some of the things you could see the wires. Like there's a bit where a snake jumps out of the character. You could see it was wrapped in a wire. That, Jason crushes this guy's head and his eye pops out, but you can see it's on a wire. Later in the film, he throws a knife that hits the doorway and just misses a character, and you can see the string on it. But I think that added a lot to it. It was sort of schlocky and fun and entertaining. There was so much fun to be had with this film. It just took me by surprise. I didn't expect to enjoy this one as much. I liked this much more than the second film. There are aspects I enjoyed in the second film more than this one, but this has been the most fun I've had with the Friday the 13th films so far. I'm looking forward to watching the rest of them. Things that kind of let this film down. One is the main actress. She's not a very good actress in my opinion. She's not very believable. And I know that's not saying much for this sort of genre and these particular films, but there's something about the previous heroines, Alice and Ginny, that sort of were the actors brought a lot to, and you sort of believed them. With this one, she just felt a bit over the top. It felt like she was out of Days of Our Lives or one of those sort of soap opera shows, and hadn't harnessed the idea of keeping it simple and realistic to the performance. And I think she lets it down, even though her character's kind of interesting because she's very strong and very smart. She outwits Jason at every turn where he tries to attack her, which I really liked. But I just felt her performance lets that down a bit. And the other thing I didn't quite enjoy as much was the portrayal of Jason Voorhees in this film. The guy was too tall, he looked weird in the clothes, the mask didn't quite look as good as it later would. They sort of made Jason a bit comical and a bit of an idiot towards the end of the film when she realises he's the guy that attacks when he takes his mask off, and he sort of smiles and laughs, and it was kind of turned him into a childish idiot. And I didn't like that aspect because Jason's never really been like that. He's been an intimidating, sort of scary figure. And that's the aspect I enjoyed of the previous film. And the portrayal of Jason Voorhees in that was fantastic, where this one sort of is a bit lackluster. It is disappointing, and that sort of let this film down. I felt if they had the Jason Voorhees they had in 2 and the main actress was a bit more like Ginny, this would have probably been my favourite of the series so far, because I just thought it was really well executed and just an enjoyable, fun, silly slasher film. This film apparently had 3 separate endings, and there was different ones, but the one they went with I think works pretty well for the story they're telling, because there's at the end of it, she thinks Jason's dead and then he appears, but then she realizes it's not quite real, and then she gets attacked by Mrs. Voorhees, which I really thought was great. All that aspect of it was fantastic and well executed. Apparently the original concept for this film was they were going to take the Ginny character from the previous one. She was going to be in a psychiatric hospital, struggling, having nightmares with what's happened to her, and then Jason would appear and start picking people off. I kind of liked this idea. This is something I thought about at the end of this film before I watched the special features and learned about this, because I think it would be really fantastic is if you took every single characters who overcame Jason, mostly the strong female characters, and you put them in a psychiatric hospital, and they sort of, you can do like Cult of Chucky type thing, where they're all sitting around talking about their experiences. They don't know what they saw at the end was real or not. And it's like Jason appears and starts sort of taking them out one by one. I think this would be kind of interestingly done. This would be what I would do with the series and do something completely different to what we've seen previous. I know you still have to set up the Crystal Lake thing, but you could do that through flashbacks and things of these characters remembering. I just think this would be a great avenue to pursue, to tell you the truth. And I'm surprised they didn't take it. But it was ultimately turned that this is not what the Friday the 13th audience wanted, so they went back to more of the traditional things, more connection, more back to the first film than any other one. It felt like Stephen Weiner knew what he wanted to do with this film. There's a lot of movement here. There's this great opening sequence at this sort of convenience store or store in the middle of nowhere. This great crane shot that comes down and through into the washing, hanging on the line, and there's a variety of things that he uses here, where he uses the camera a bit more to tell the story. There's a lot more movement. We are getting into the early stages of the 80s, and those sort of movies were done this sort of way, and the horror films were done similar. And I really like what he's doing here in the story, and the use of the camera to tell the story. I like a lot of the gags. Like I said, even though they're silly and cheesy, they work well for what they're going for. And the biggest gimmick about this film was the idea it was shot in 3D. There are moments where they stick things straight into the camera, and these moments where characters are juggling, and what they're juggling goes into the camera, and there's an eyeball scene. And the opening credits are fantastic, like done in 3D, where you see it sort of stretched out, and this great 80s music, which I really loved. But I would love to see this in 3D. I would have loved to see what it looked like and how they went about doing it, because you get to see bits of it, but to see it actually in 3D, I think would be fantastic. It's a surprising film and entertaining. It's not quite what I expected, but I enjoyed it so much more than the previous film. And like I said, I just wish they did something a bit better with Jason in this film than they did, because I just felt he was wasted and kind of turned him into kind of an idiot, and I didn't like that aspect to the film, because I think he's much more than that, and he's the main reason I'm watching it. Anyway, that's all from me today. I hope you're enjoying these Horror Icon series videos, because I'm enjoying doing them. So next, obviously, is going to be Friday the 13th Part 4, the final chapter, which obviously it's not, but that's what the film's called. So it'll be interesting to see if I enjoy that as much as I enjoy this film. Anyway, until next time, enjoy the movies.